My guest today, you probably know her. You may know her from Dancing with the Stars, or perhaps it was her time with Extra or E Entertainment or Good Morning America. I mean, so many things. Her resume is second only to her story because you want to talk about making a career transition. How about this? She's now a best-selling author, a phenomenal certified health coach and trainer, and perhaps most importantly, a breast cancer survivor. And she is here today to share one incredible story with us. Samantha Harris, welcome to the exam room.
I'm a huge fan of the exam room, and so being on as a guest is a highlight. Thank you.
The honor is all mine. Thank you so very much for being here. And I want to dive right into your story because it is so fascinating. You have always been true or false, really kind of, at least you would say you were health conscious, right? You always considered yourself to be a healthy person.
Out of college, once I gave up the deep dish Chicago pizzas and the nightly raw cookie dough that we raided from the sorority house at Northwestern, yes. Then once I moved out to LA, I considered myself pretty darn healthy.
Okay. The cookie dough and Chicago style pizza. Those two things have never been mentioned in the same sentence on this show. So that is the first. But flash forward. So you're health conscious, you move out to LA. 40 years old, though, you're diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And it's my understanding that that really just kind of took you by surprise.
Oh, it rocked my world. And the blindsided nature of a diagnosis when you especially think that you're healthy. I was literally the picture of health on the cover of 11, 12 different health and fitness magazines. And I was, exercising daily. I was eating my egg white omelets and my skinless, boneless chicken breasts and thinking that I was eating this healthy diet with my low fat, fat free life. And boom, breast cancer. My daughters were 3 and 6 at the time. I did not see it coming. I lost my dad to colon cancer when he was just 50. So when I was about to turn 40, I thought, should probably get that mammogram thing I've heard about. I have a grandmother who lived to 95, but was a breast cancer survivor. And with my dad's cancer, and there's oftentimes a breast and not often, but occasionally a breast and colon connection for cancer. So I got my mammogram, and Chuck, it came back clear. It's exactly what I had anticipated, being the healthy one among my friends and family. Until 11 days later, I found a lump when I was changing after a workout and immediately took action. I called my longtime OBGYN because she was the only one who ever gave a clinical breast exam to me. She quickly saw me, said it was nothing, sent me on my way. A month later, lump still there, said, okay, well, it's not cancer. Had a clear mammogram, had a doctor say it was not cancer. So I saw my internist. He did the same thing, quick clinical exam, sent me on my way. It's nothing to worry about. We'll keep an eye on it if you're worried. But then, Chuck, it was 4 months that had passed. And it was the holidays, and you finally come up for air after the new year. And there was this inner voice that had been talking to me all along, but now it was screaming at me. And I needed to get quiet enough to hear it. And what it was saying was, you, Samantha, need to have this nothing lump checked by someone who's an expert, who looks at breasts every day and knows what to look for if it is potentially something. And that's beyond a clinical feel. So that's when I finally found my way to a breast center, which is filled with only oncologists, because that's the only type of doctor who's an expert in breasts. And she did 2 ultrasounds, a needle biopsy. I had a subsequent MRI. Not one test even detected the cancer.
All of that, and you're still coming up clear at this point?
I'm still coming up clear. Literally, she walked into the room after the needle biopsy and said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is it's not cancer. The bad news is, Samantha, I don't know what it is. And this is where finding experts who are really good at their job is important, because she listened to her gut. And she said, you know what? Because I don't know what it is, I advise we take it out. So I had a lumpectomy. And a week later, went for the final pathology results. And that's when we found out indeed, not only was it ductal carcinoma in situ, which is breast cancer that's contained within the duct and the cells aren't smart enough, thankfully, to get out, but she listened to her gut even further in the surgical room. And she said, for whatever reason, I took a little sample of the border of some healthy tissue. And I don't know why I wanted a sample of that, but I took some, and that's invasive cancer.
Mm.
Which led me down the much more in-depth cancer path that I was on to lead me to my stage 2 and my subsequent double mastectomy, second stage reconstruction. So 3 surgeries in 2014 and an estrogen blocking drug that I've been on for about 8 years now.
Mm. Mm. I mean, so you keep getting told, no, it's not cancer, it's not cancer, it's not cancer. You still have this little voice, and now your doctor has this little voice. But I mean, the day of the diagnosis, I mean, were you still really surprised, even though you kind of had this nagging voice in your head now for a little while?
Oh, Chuck, I was so surprised. I was so surprised that I was so confident that it wasn't cancer because I had been told now by 3 different doctors, including an expert in breast cancer, that it wasn't cancer. I told my husband to stay home. He didn't need to come with me, sit in a dark, dang doctor's office while I got the results of the pathology and looked at my incision, so there I was by myself sitting on a doctor's table as the word carcinoma and diagrams being drawn of a breast with little dots that represented the cancer cells were being shown to me, trying to make sense of this whirlwind that I did not anticipate to any degree.
I would imagine that you experienced not just beyond shock, it was just a rush of emotion. Is it possible even for you to articulate how you felt in that moment?
It was, so I am very much a happy-go-lucky person. It was always who I was from birth. And in that moment, cancer struck down the happy girl inside of me. And for the first time in my life, I felt this rush of what I can liken to a coursing, pulsating adrenaline that ran through my veins and gave me what I learned was incredible anxiety, possibly even borderline panic attacks that I had never felt before. I didn't know how to deal with it. I had, again, our daughters were 3 and 6. They were at home. They just needed mommy to come and play and put them to bed and take care of them. And all I could think of every moment of every waking second, I would wake up in the morning thinking it was a bad dream. And then the realization would hit me with a ton of bricks and this elephant on my chest that it was cancer. And my dad died of cancer when he was 50. And here I was 40. And I couldn't die too. I had to be there for my girls and for my husband and for my mom, who had already gone through this with the person she loves so much. So it took about 3 weeks of feeling this horrid way. And something, again, deep inside me bubbled up and said, Samantha, you cannot feel this way for the unforeseen future of what this cancer journey will be. You need to pull it together. So what I chose to do in that moment, and now as a certified health coach and as a trainer and so entrenched in the wellness world, I understand now so much that what I wish I had known, but somehow came to, which was I had to flip my perspective. I had to change my mindset and then take on everything that came at me with a positive spin. And that wasn't easy, but from that moment and from that experience, I developed a set of tools that have come in handy, whether it's when an earthquake has come to LA out of the blue, because that's what they do, or a pandemic is upon us and is putting us in our home and away from people. I now have a set of tools to deal with stress and anxiety that work really well.
That's a common theme that I've heard from people who are in these ultra stressful situations, whether it be with their health or their professional career or their personal life. It's that the positive mental attitude is critically important to have the best possible outcome. Do you think that had you not been able to crawl out of that hole after those 3 weeks, the outcome here may have played out a little bit differently?
Well, I think tremendously so. We have so many studies that back up, especially specifically with cancer, the outcomes of longevity and mortality when it comes to attitude, mindset, and perception. So one of the tools that I now have in my arsenal is positive self-talk. So it sort of looked like this back then. Samantha, you have cancer. What's good? Okay, I'm not saying it was easy to figure out immediately what was good, but now it is. What was good and what came to me was, I said this out loud, positive self-talk. Okay, well, what's good? Let's see. I am in otherwise great shape and good health. Therefore, my complications during surgery risks will be reduced. My recovery will be faster. Okay, this is really good, Samantha. Keep talking. What else is good? Okay, I have great insurance. Awesome. Keep going. I have a wonderful support network. All right, you're rocking it now. And the more you think of things that are positive, it feeds into the next and then the next. And so this, our brain processes our thoughts and our speech patterns, whether it's positive self-talk or negative self-talk. When we look in the mirror, something as simple as, ugh, that wrinkle, ugh, I'm fat, ugh, 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 it radiates to a cellular level. So how do we flip that consciously? And then the more we practice it, which also comes along with writing in a gratitude journal, which I didn't do for many years after cancer, but I now know is a wonderful asset, to even just having a gratitude practice of thoughts, they then become your regular thought pattern. But it takes effort at the beginning.
No doubt, no doubt. But I would think that you're living proof that no matter how dire a situation may seem, you can, turn that frown upside down, to use that old cliche. I mean, if you're facing a breast cancer diagnosis and you're still able to put on those rose-colored glasses and do those self-affirmations and look at things, give it the most silverest of silver linings possible. I think that that is so critically important. And if people take away just one little thing from this interview today, I really hope that it's that tool may be the creme de la creme. That may be like your ultra power tool in your tool chest.
Well, I think that in addition to that, it was really a combination of a set of tools, positive self-talk being and mindset being one of the most powerful. But something else that really helps me, and this helps me in small moments, from being stuck in traffic and frustrated I'm going to be late to an appointment, all the way to something like I found a lump and what do I do next, is to control what you can control. So in the cancer scenario, I couldn't control at that point that I had cancer, because here I was with a diagnosis. But what could I control? Well, I could control my attitude towards things. I could control what actions I took, right? So post cancer, and we'll get into this, I took control of how I was eating, how I was stressing, how I was approaching exercise, how I was mitigating stress, and being able to take those controlling actions. And then the third part of what I find is the trifecta of dealing with things that are causing stress, anxiety, depression, is also worry when you have to worry, because we have so many thoughts that permeate our mind that never actually come to fruition. So I'm not saying put blinders on and don't deal with something, take control. But then, for instance, post cancer, I had some lymph nodes in my groin that were pretty sizey. It turns out it's because I'm eating really healthfully and I'm at a really great weight that I'm thin enough that I can actually feel where those lymph nodes are, whereas perhaps prior I couldn't. But I felt them, they seemed sizey. All of a sudden, the worry, all that adrenaline, that cortisol, that negativity rushed in. I thought, I can't deal with cancer again. So I took these three things: positive self-talk, control what I could control, which was calling the doctor, getting seen, having a PET scan, making sure that everything was clear, and then putting the worry away. Because if there was, God forbid, a diagnosis, I'd have plenty of time to worry. So worry when you have to worry.
Okay, I like that. Why worry about something you may not need to worry about? Worry when the time comes, basically. Question for you. I want to go back to your story. So here we are. You're changing your mindset 3 weeks after the diagnosis, but where are you professionally? What are you doing career-wise at that point?
So I had left Entertainment Tonight. I had just wrapped a network show for NBC, and it honestly couldn't have come at a better time. See, sometimes be careful what you wish for. I was wondering, well, where's that next job? When am I going to get back on TV? What's happening? And instead, I was able to be present for my kids and be focused. And then this diagnosis came. Thank goodness it came at a time where I wasn't in the midst of the insane schedule that were my TV schedules. And I could be focused on, when I wasn't worrying about my health and taking care of doctor's appointments, I could be present for my kids. So sometimes, again, there's a lot to be said about be careful what you wish for.
And going back to kind of the family history here, before you started to do some research and really diving in and learning about genetics and epigenetics, how much of this did you think was completely out of your control, and this was just the hand that God dealt you, essentially?
Well, when I was diagnosed, and of course, because my dad had colon cancer and died of it, because his mother had breast cancer postmenopausal. So it turns out later I found out there was no connection to mine. But I thought, well, of course I have cancer because this is in my family. And oh gosh, that means my girls are going to have a higher risk as well. And oh gosh, what do I do? What do I do? But there's really nothing to do because it's just my genetics.
Hmm.
And then I got the genetic tests back because, of course, there's the BRCA gene, which is one of the most widely known genes that puts you at about an 80% risk of various female cancers from ovarian and cervical to breast. But that was not a genetic link I had. And then there's a disease, I'm blanking on what the name is, but it's a colon and breast connection. And Lynch syndrome is what it's called, actually. I was negative for Lynch syndrome. And I was negative for an entire battery of the other known, and there are a lot of them, but of course not all, of known genetic tests. And I remember getting the call from the genetic counselor saying, oh, you have no genetic link to the cancer. And my immediate reaction, Chuck, was disappointment.
Hmm.
In retrospect, I am beyond grateful that I had no genetic link. But I wanted answers. I wanted a simple answer. I wanted the answer that it wasn't my fault. It was nothing within my control. This just happened to me. And so that's why the initial result was a disappointment. Of course, once I had a couple more minutes or hours to think about it, I thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness. That means my girls aren't at a higher risk of breast cancer beyond the risk that they will have that's elevated only because I had it, but not because of a genetic predisposition. So I'm a national ambassador for Susan G. Komen. And what I learned from all of their breast cancer research is that only 5 to 10% of breast cancers are actually genetic. And I believe that depending on the type of other cancers, and we know there are so many, it ranges from anywhere from 5 to even only 30% of certain cancers being genetic. So when we look at the breast cancer specifically, 5 to 10% are genetic. There's probably another, 5 that are just completely unexplainable, which means we have this huge portion of about 85 to 90% of breast cancers being from what? I didn't know. And I'm a journalist by trade. So I did exactly what you would have done as a researcher and as a journalist yourself, Chuck. Put that journalism hat on and I began to research, speak to every expert I could, learn as much as I could, research as much as I could. And I determined it really is the epigenetics, as you mentioned, what we put, and I didn't know the word epigenetics, what we put in, on, and around our body, what our lifestyle and habits are that affects our DNA structure, that turns on or off certain cancer genes that might be laying there dormant. And is the switch going to get flipped on, or is it going to stay in the off position? When not just for breast cancer risk, but the changes that we make to change our habits and our lifestyle choices also affect our chances of getting type 2 diabetes, heart disease, certain autoimmune disorders, neurodegenerative disorders, as of course you guys talk about on the exam room all the time. So these things were so just wow and shocking to me that I dove even deeper and deeper until I finally actually went and got certified as a health coach. I went through a long training program from a very prestigious institution, and I am so proud of the work that I do in making that pivot from television host to helping others elevate their wellness and become the healthiest they possibly can by taking control of their wellness in ways they didn't realize they could or even should.
Oh yeah. I mean, flipping that switch for people is the ultimate reward. And getting feedback from people who have listened to the show, the exam roomies, who have said, thank you so much for covering this. Because of this, I've been able to improve my own health. Like, to me, that is everything. And for you, though, to work on an even more intimate basis with your clients, I would imagine that reward for you is even greater.
It is. So at first, when I started my work as a certified health coach, I just took on some private clients, and I took a very small number of people on at a time. And then I realized I just want to reach more people. And so in January of 2021, I launched, But let me back it up. I know you mentioned that I'm an author. So the best-selling book that I wrote called Your Healthiest Healthy came out in 2018. And the reason I wrote Your Healthiest Healthy was because after I learned all about what's in, on, and around our bodies and how we should change and make changes, from the foods we're eating to the makeup and skincare products and we're using on our body, to the cleaning supplies around and toxic relationships around us and how that's raising our cortisol or the neurotoxins and endocrine disruptors and carcinogens in our bodies. There didn't seem to be one place to go to get. I didn't want someone to say, this is what you have to do, but I wanted the information as a foundation. So I wrote the book, Your Healthiest Healthy, because I thought I was my healthiest, but I wasn't. I was healthy. I needed to reach my healthiest healthy. So Your Healthiest Healthy is really a roadmap and a comprehensive action plan to get people started on, well, what should I start to add more of in my diet? What should I start to reduce or eliminate? How should I source what I'm choosing to eat? Then when it comes to my beauty products, well, gosh, what do you mean? What carcinogens? What are endocrine disruptors? What do those do to me? And how am I getting them on my body? Oh, they're in my products. Oh, I need to start reading labels. Here's what I need to look out for, and really expanding from there. And then in January of 2021, I launched Your Healthiest Healthy Community, which is a subscription-based membership program where every week I offer a live coaching session, a live workout. I bring in live guest experts, as well as lead a live breathwork meditation on Zoom. So we have that one wonderful time to build community and interaction. And these things are just so important to me. And so in addition to that, I also lead Your Healthiest Healthy retreats. So I transitioned from having just a big base of private clients to just a couple of private clients, but mostly doing all my coaching through Your Healthiest Healthy community and my wellness retreats.
Yeah, I think that those workouts are probably no joke. I've seen you on Instagram on the trampoline, and I think that you even went out and did a workout with the SEALs one day, the Navy
I
SEAls.
did.
I
That was
mean,
intense.
you're hardcore, girl.
That was intense. You know, it's interesting because when I was growing up in high school in Minnesota, I was on the dance team, but exercise was just fun. It was a social hour. It was just a good time. When I went to school at Northwestern University in Chicago, I took a couple of dance classes, but really had to drag my butt to get to the gym. I didn't find exercise exciting or fun. It was more of a chore. And then I moved to LA, and there was no more formal exercise that school provided. And I realized, wow, at the time, I wanted to just look good, right? I was in my 20s. I was trying to get on TV and start my career. So it was really an extrinsic motivation of just wanting to look good. And then cancer came. And I realized how important having that intrinsic motivation for exercise. Now I exercise to feel good, to lift my mood, to boost my energy levels and my productivity, but also so that I can be around for a very long time to see my kids grow up and know their children and have the energy to be able to run after their kids and also prevent slips and falls that will keep me from doing the things I want to do as I grow, which is just part of the bigger picture, which is why I eat the way I do, with a more plant-based lifestyle, why I mitigate my stress through breath work and micro meditation and all the other great things that come along, like hikes in nature.
I'm telling you, man, like stress. Speaking with Dr. Dean Ornish about that on this show, you know, the importance that he places on really mitigating stress in your own life for your health. Like it's such a critical yet, you know, undervalued part of our health. Like I don't understand why more people don't take the time to smell the roses. We're taught to do that from a young age, but how many of us actually do that these days, right? But it's a little thing like that can make all the difference in the world when it comes to your health. I want to back up a little bit in your story, though, Samantha, and go back to when it was you were putting together your course of treatment following your diagnosis here. So I believe you opted at one point for a double mastectomy. Is that correct?
I did. I had a bilateral mastectomy in 2014, which was a two-part, because what I ended up doing was getting expanders in, which is sort of the two-part reconstruction to bring the breast back to looking more natural when clothed, and even somewhat when unclothed. You know, they're a pretty good job.
Was that a difficult decision for you?
It was, there were, so first of all, when you get diagnosed with any type of disease, with cancer, it's, you go through cancerversity. You have to learn all these terms. You have to learn all of the different options. And I really made sure that I went to not just one or two, but I usually had three opinions, because sometimes something resonates a little more. Someone says or phrases something, even if it's the same bit of advice, a different way. So through my cancerversary, I also knew that I had a couple of options. I could either do another. So the lumpectomy that I had was just to get the initial lump that we didn't think was cancer out, that showed me it was cancer. So that meant then once we knew it was cancer, I had to either go back in, do a second lumpectomy, but this time with radiation, or a single or double mastectomy. So I spoke to a lot of different doctors. I also talked to a lot of cancer survivors who had done both surgeries and found out sort of how they felt about it, made a list of pros and cons, really took it step by step with my husband at my side every minute of this, especially because he wasn't there when I told him to stay home the day I found out I had cancer. He never forgave himself from that. He never missed another doctor's appointment. And he really, building that community around you is very important, from, my husband to my mom, my sisters, my stepdad, my mother-in-law, cousins, right? Everyone around me was very important in making and talking, just really talking, not being afraid. I think cancer was something that was whispered in the corners of hallways back in the day. Grateful that the conversation is now open. And the more, when I meet a newly diagnosed cancer survivor who says, oh yeah, no, I'm so glad I'm sharing this with you because I haven't talked to any of my family about this yet. It breaks my heart because we need to have that support system around us.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like you've got an incredible one in your life. Your husband's certainly a keeper. From everything you've just said, I'm really glad that you had that sense of support. I don't know if you've ever been asked this particular question, but I want to ask it from a guy's perspective because I think it's important that we try to understand as much as possible. What is it that you wish men knew when it comes to breast cancer and a decision to go through a surgery as extreme as a double mastectomy?
Well, I think that's a really great question. And, especially because, I say to people after I had my mastectomy that, look, my boobs did what they needed to do. They got me my husband and they fed my kids and they did those two things, and now just take them away. But it's not as easy as that. There's, you're, as a woman losing your breasts, it's a mix of emotions on so many levels, from the intimacy that they can bring. You lose all sensation. So for a lot of us, that can be really hard. How you look when you look at yourself naked in the mirror and what that means to you, how that affects your self-worth. And I think that for those people who say, oh, hey, you're getting a mastectomy, awesome, you get a free boob job. Not really. So that's a lot of the time, men, their brain sometimes goes to that place of like, yeah. Now I will say my husband always brought a lot of light and levity throughout the process, because even in the darkest of moments, you have to find that light. And I could always count on him for that. And I remember one day when we were at pre-surgery at my reconstructive surgeon's office, and she brought us the breast binder, and it was basically a book of boobs from all sizes, all shapes, and really we had to go through it. This was a job my husband was up for. We had to go through and look at all the different boobs and figure out which type of breasts were kind of ideal for what we were looking to go for this reconstruction. And so, it's finding those moments where it's okay to laugh and have fun, and then remember to just take the lead from the woman who's going through the breast cancer. And there are men also who do deal with breast cancer. It's not only women. There are men who have been diagnosed. And so men too, check those pecs.
The book of boobs, huh? I can see how that might bring a little levity to the situation.
Indeed.
I want to flash forward here because we only have about 5 minutes left or so. You underwent a number of other surgeries after the test came back from your lymphs, correct?
Yes. So, well, from the lymph nodes?
Yes, the lymph nodes.
So in the double mastectomy or in a lumpectomy or single mastectomy, we all now, it's pretty much protocol that you have what's called the axilla node biopsy. And so basically there's a lymph node under, well, there are lymph nodes, of course, under both armpits. And on whichever side or both sides, if you have cancer in both, you'll have to have the axilla node removed. And that's sort of known as the gatekeeper node. And it's a pretty phenomenal surgery. And my oncologist, my surgical oncologist, Dr. Armando Giuliano out of Cedars-Sinai Hospital here in Beverly Hills, is the one who did my surgery. But he also was on the team of doctors who figured out that if we can take out the axilla node, it's a gatekeeper. And if there's no cancer in the axilla node, the likelihood that the cancer has traveled to any of the other nodes is highly unlikely. But if that axilla node is positive, there's a chance that the gate opened and other nodes have it. So what ended up happening for me is I did have that axilla node positive for cancer. So not only did they take that, they took 11 other nodes as well, as many nodes as they could find. Thank goodness, when I woke up from my mastectomy a few days later while I was still in the hospital, I was told that I was negative for any other node involvement, because you're graded on the staging, and the grading of that cancer is based on how far it's gotten. So you know, the fewer the nodes, or ideally no nodes involved, it would be the best. So it was disappointing that one node had involvement, and that's why I was bumped up to stage 2 from a stage 1. But thank goodness no other nodes were involved.
And contrast the emotions of the day where the doctors told you, hey, you're cancer free, to those when you receive that initial shocking diagnosis. I would imagine that's a 180 of all 180s.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because they perform the mastectomy, and that sort of is the day you're cancer free. But it wasn't really until about a year later when I had my 1-year follow-up MRI, just to make sure that the integrity of the implants were there, and that also it was the first thing that really showed how much breast tissue was left. And you know, it's a misnomer to think that a mastectomy gets every last cell of breast tissue, which is why a lot of women, the majority, depending on the type of breast cancer, are on some sort of follow-up treatment, whether it's the estrogen blocker that I'm on because I had hormone positive cancer, to other, you know, whole list of other medications that people can be on, or follow-up radiation or chemotherapy, either prior or post surgery. And so when I saw that MRI though, and I saw how cleanly, you know, even though there's still some cells there, you could really barely see 1 ounce of tissue left. I thought, okay, I see that I can visually see the cancer is gone. And that was that breath of fresh air.
All right, now you're on the exam room. So here's your final question from me. Can't let you go without talking about food. I want to go into your kitchen. Tell me, Samantha, what are your go-to must-have cancer-fighting foods?
Absolutely. Well, I start my day with a smoothie or an acai bowl. And the reason is because I can pack into that thing so much nutrient density and plant-based goodness. So matcha green tea powder and flaxseed, ground fresh daily or every 2 days, are key for breast cancer prevention. I want to up my fiber, so I make sure that I have berries. Everything's organic, especially anything on the dirty dozen list. We want to make sure anything that's extra heavy in pesticides is eliminated from my kitchen as much as possible. So all of my berries are actually everything, all my greens. So I have spinach, kale. I'll switch up the greens. So sometimes it's not kale, but it might be collard greens or Swiss chard. And the reason for changing it up is because we want the biodiversity for that microbiome and that gut health. So that's why I like to change up the greens as well. And then a great vegan plant-based protein powder, as well as ginger. I mean, it's the kitchen sink smoothie. And if you go to yourhealthiesthealthy.com, I have under the resources tab, recipes, and my Samantha's signature smoothie is on there. So you guys can go easy on yourself and then just keep leveling up. But organic, wild blueberries, another great cancer fighter that I have almost every day.
Outstanding. My friend Dr. Will Bolsowitz would be so proud of you right now for talking
Oh my
about the
gosh. Can I just,
microbiome.
first of all, shout out to Will and a shout out to Dr. Barnard, who's been a frequent guest in Your Healthiest Healthy community. And Dr. Will Bolsowitz has also been a guest in Your Healthiest Healthy community. But I had, so my dad died of colon cancer. I have colonoscopies every 3 years, which I've been getting since I was 35. I'm now 48 plus. And I just literally last week had my most recent colonoscopy. Thank goodness for Dr. Will. I texted him and I said, okay, I have to go on a low fiber diet for the 3 to 5 days before this colonoscopy. That's everything I eat. Will, I know you just had one. What did you eat? Because I can't eat anything that's good and healthy. I don't want to eat white crap, flour and rice and tons of animal products because of course they have no fiber. And so it was a real challenge. We got through it, but thank goodness he was there to support because we love Dr. Will Bolsowitz.
Dr. B for the win. Love that guy. That is my dude right there. All right. So talk to me really quickly about the women's wellness retreat that you have coming up November 3rd through the 6th in St. George, Utah, which, if memory serves, is kind of close to the Arizona and Nevada border.
So yes, you can fly into Vegas or Salt Lake City or through Denver, and it's in St. George. It's at Red Mountain Resort and Spa. So November 3rd through 6th. And you know what? If you guys want to come and you tell me when you make your deposit that you heard me on the exam room, I'll give you $200 off. So just remind me and I'll make sure that happens. But the rooms are already starting to book up. What I do at this wellness retreat is we hike every day. We eat plant-based goodness. We build community. We also go through and talk about the toxins that are lurking in our makeup bag, in our personal care products, start to mitigate that, determine what our core values are so that we can set goals for ourselves that align with them, from nutrition goals to exercise goals to the breathwork and meditation that I lead. We have so much fun and I cannot wait to be able to enjoy it with all of you, as well as Your Healthiest Healthy community that is going on every week of every month. So you can join at any time for that as well.
And the resort where the retreat is being held is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I saw some photos of it and I was like, wow, that place actually exists. I mean, what a setting to have such a powerful retreat. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a link to a link for you to register right now is in the show description or in the episode notes. So go ahead and click on that. And as Samantha just said, let her know that you heard it right here on the exam room and you will get $200 off. That is very generous of you. Thank you.
You know what? I just right now, I was like, wait a second, we got to throw something in for you guys because I love the exam room. Chuck, I appreciate you having me on. And I just love talking to you. I could talk to you for hours. So we should do this again because I would love to share with everybody also about the toxins that are lurking that we can get out of the makeup products and get out of our skincare and get out of our homes so that we can mitigate it. Because everyone all these exam roomies, you guys are already doing all the good work to work with your nutrition and base it up, but we want to make sure we have that level because you can eat the most perfect diet, but if you're not making sure the other areas of your health are taken care of and accounted for, it makes it really hard to be able to mitigate disease.
There it is. See, that's that next level health that I'm talking about right now. You got me all fired up.
Woo woo!
Samantha Harris, thank you so very much for being here and just for sharing such a remarkable story. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, everybody.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.